Now, a food labelling campaign is hoping to be the first to offer consumers a way of identifying foods which are low in added sugar. Scientists have developed a test which distinguishes between the total amount of sugar in foods and the added sugar content. Sky's Charlotte Lomas reports.
Whether it's free, refined or natural, sugar has become the big issue of our time. Nutritional experts now recommend that free sugars make up just 5% of our daily calorie intake. But mother of one Rend Platings found doing so wasn't that easy. So she's designed a certification label to identify products that pass the low sugar test.
When I looked at toddler food and baby food, things that are marketed for weaning really, I was shocked to see the amount of sugars in them. Typical rusks, for example, they have, they say that they have 20% of the iron that your baby needs, but they've got 29 grams of added sugar in 100 grams of rusk.
This box of Fruit Heroes is the first food to make the grade and obtain the SugarWise label. Other brands are now hoping to follow suit. But before they can, they must be put through strict testing, which allows scientists to tell the difference between a product's total sugar and its free sugar content for the first time.
Free sugars are sugars that are added to food, as well as the sugars that are found in fruit juices, honeys and syrups. And because free sugars don't fill you up like other sugars normally do, you're more likely to overeat if you have a high free sugar diet. And also because free sugars produce a spike in insulin, you're more likely to convert those sugars into fatty deposits in your body.
Health campaigners hope that clearer food labelling will help fight against the growing problem of obesity and sugar-related illnesses such as diabetes and tooth decay. But some experts have reservations about how well the SugarWise scheme will work.
This target for us to consume 5% or less of our energy intake from sugars is about our overall daily intake. It's not that every food needs to contain less than 5% sugar, and most of us are perfectly able to have some treats within our diet that are higher than 5% added sugars or free sugars.
While a treat once in a while might be fine, campaigners want to cut the confusion for some consumers and make it easy to see which foods truly do have no sugar. Charlotte Lomas, Sky News.
Talk a little bit more about this. Good morning to you. It's a bit sort of misnomer really, free sugars. You don't think of that as something that's bad for you, but that's exactly what you shouldn't be having a lot of, is that right?
This is the new term, the free sugars. Before we just talk about sugar, so now they're trying to define it and say, okay, we've got sugars that are bound up in the cell, in the fruit and the vegetable, that because it's bound up, the process of chewing, digesting, it means it's released slowly. Some of it won't even be digested because it's still bound up in the cell. But then when you've crushed that cell down or had sugar in its natural, just teaspoons of sugar, that goes straight into the bloodstream. So they're trying to distinguish it and saying, try and eat the whole food, that's going to be okay. But if you're going to be piling on sugar in honey, syrups, or in teaspoons of sugar, or just lots of neat fruit juice, that's not working the same way.
See, lots of people will think, and you mentioned honey there, that honey, because it's natural, then that's good for you, and that's much better than having, say, white processed sugar.
Yes.
Are they more or less the same?
So this is what this is picking out. It actually works the same way. As soon as you've got sugar in a form that is smooth, is not bound up, that's going to be something that's rapidly absorbed. It acts just like sugar, standard sugar.
The next step, labelling, how will that benefit the consumer?
So, because we've just got this overall term for sugar, we just don't know what's been added by the manufacturer, how much is because they've put lots of fresh fruit in the product, because, you might have a big fruit salad and that might come out as high sugar, but that's bound up, that's okay. But then the manufacturer might have added a syrup to it. You're like, well, I don't know the difference. Did the sugar come from syrup, something the manufacturer added, or is it just that there's good fruit in here? And you don't know. And that's what this is trying to pick out, so the consumer can say, actually, this is all right. The sugar content added is low, and any sugar I see on the label is because I'm eating a whole piece of fruit, which will be fine.
Is there a danger of getting a bit too caught up on, whether it's sugar or added sugar in a product? I mean, should the message just not be everything in moderation, eat healthily?
It is still everything in moderation, and of course, if you've got that overall, everything's going to be fine. And the other fact that you look at is this only comes into play if you're eating processed food all day. Because if you're eating normal food that you've cooked at home, you know exactly what you've added to it. So you don't really need to be checking labels because you're buying the fruit and vegetables. You might be cooking some pasta. it's not going to be an issue. It's when you're buying all of these packaged up foods, confectionery, chocolates, kind of the obvious food, that's where you're going to see the sugars from. So it's kind of where it's obvious is where you're going to see it.
It's probably best to try and steer clear of sugar altogether. That might be easier than reading all of these labels.
It's easier to just eat real food as real produce rather than food that's all packaged up, because that's where it gets confusing. That's where you're relying on a manufacturer to trust their labels.
Let's all eat real food. Nicole, thanks very much for coming and sharing your expertise with us this morning. Thank you. Charlie, what have we got coming up in this?